Hello, can everybody hear me?
I can hear you.
I mean, that's the first thing, right? I'm waiting for some of the students to sound off in chat over here. And now I'm scared because usually they do that right away. Let's
Hmm.
see, am I on the right channel? Yes. Ooh, here we go. They can hear me. This is WoW Classic, Owen. And today we have a guest speaker also. This is Mark Chen. You might recognize his name from the book that you read for class this week. Um,
Ooh, I think there's a slight delay maybe.
I think there is a slight delay. That's what's happening. That could be. So my roommate is also streaming right now, and there's nothing I can do about that because it's COVID time, and so now we both work from home. Um, Alrighty. So, yeah, so um, here's what I'm gonna do to start this off, because I know from the last time I had you in a class, Mark, um, I had a little trouble getting the discussion questions going, and they do have to participate for credit. So here's what I'm gonna do. I am going to start out with a discussion question right off the bat. All right, students, that's your cue to be paying attention. Um, and then how I do this, Mark, is I'll give them a certain amount of time to answer. And I'm going to let you introduce yourself, but I'm going to say, please do not answer the question I'm asking until after they have had a chance to answer. Okay? Uh,
Sure thing.
I realize I keep looking over so that I can see your face, which is just weird because my camera is there. I will try to not do that. Yes, this is Orgrimmar, and some of you might have seen Orgrimmar, depending on if you played Horde or Alliance, for your homework this week. Um, so yeah, someone has already asked, could you repeat the question? I haven't said the question yet. But it's okay. It's one of those days. I know everybody's just brain fried from election week. Um, Yes, so here is the question we are going to start out with. So right away in I think it was like the first or second page of what you guys had to read for today, Dr. Chen talks about um, expertise and how it is about successfully learning to participate in a community of practice. What I want you, and in that same paragraph there, is where you're going to find this answer. I want to know what kind of expertise is he talking about in this introduction? Uh, and
You're
also,
gonna ask a bunch of questions I'm not sure I would be able to answer because it's been such a long time since I wrote that book.
I like how you don't play off expertise. You're just out there being like, oh, I'm not sure if I can answer that. Um, I realize I'm looking for you, and I'm actually not sure where you are.
Yeah, I'm looking for you too.
Let's do this.
You're next to the Smith
I Oh, I was gonna try
and
to
the
do
yeah,
a
where
party
fishing is.
invite. Yeah, I'm by Kiro's harnesses.
Okay, yeah, I know where you are. I'm running towards you. I'm by the what to call it? The bank right now.
Hmm. I can come to the bank, I think. Wait, where am I? It's so empty in here. It's weird.
There's people up front. I just got someone buffed me.
Um, yeah, I'll come up to the bank because I think we need to go out there anyways. Yeah,
Yeah.
extra credit if you played Horde. No, just kidding. That's a joke. It's not true. Um, all right, I am coming to the bank, and do you want to I don't know, say hi, introduce yourself. I'll be honest, I'm having you introduce yourself because I always forget what university you're at now. I'm so sorry. Such
We just passed each other.
Oh, hey.
um Okay, so yeah, I'm Mark Chen. I'm at the University of Washington, at a sister campus or satellite campus called Bothell. So, I got my PhD at the Seattle campus, but now I work for the Bothell one, which is about 45 minutes north of Seattle, except, this year location doesn't matter.
Right.
This year, yeah, I've basically been staying home like all the time. But yeah, so I got a PhD about 10 years ago, studying World of Warcraft players, which culminated in the book that you all read, um, or a part of it, I guess. And since then, or before then, I was a game designer and webmaster for the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry down in Portland, Science Museum. So I was making math and science games, and then after that, so after graduate school, I basically became a professor, um, teaching at a whole bunch of different places. But I ended up back at UW, the other UW, I guess, or you guys go by UW, and yeah. What else is there to say? I love it here in Seattle. I'm really happy that I didn't really leave Seattle.
That
Um,
works.
yeah, so I teach a bunch of different things. I teach in a program called Interactive Media Design. So I teach like design courses and user research courses. But then every once in a while I teach like a gaming culture or a game design course. So, or I guess I mentioned game design already, but um, yeah, or media studies or online ethnography stuff like that.
He does on the West Coast what I do here in the Midwest.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, basically.
I don't run a program or anything like that.
Uh, the question, and this will be the last time I repeat it, only because of time. I'm not making fun of you or anything. The question is, what kind of expertise is Dr. Chen talking about in the introduction you had to read for today? Yeah, I only have him read part of the book, just because this class is meant to be a little more survey, and it's just, we don't have the time for
Yeah.
the whole book. All right, I'm trying to figure out on the map. Oh, we have
I
to
mean,
go to the Barrens. That's the problem.
I don't make my own students read my whole book, so I'm quite proud of chapter 3 though. So if any of you have the book, keep reading.
I was actually very disappointed in myself today that I had to read my PDF version because I left the physical version in my office on campus.
But you can do stuff like search.
That's true. That is nice. I like holding a physical book.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Anyways,
And
so, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that the cover is gorgeous.
The cover is gorgeous. I actually only realized today, because I never paid attention to the credits, that you are responsible for that cover art.
Yeah, so before academia, I was basically an artist, game designer / artist. So
So I'm going to take this opportunity early on in lecture to let you guys know, because some of you take advantage of this, some of you don't, right? But in addition to answering my discussion questions, you can, for participation, ask a question as long as it is meaningful and demonstrates that you obviously actually did the reading. And today would be an excellent opportunity to take advantage of that option since we have Dr. Chen here. I'll also give you guys like 2 more minutes to answer the expertise thing, and then I'm going to cut it off and ask Dr. Chen his thoughts on that.
we don't want to fall in the
No,
pit
because I
down there.
think that's going to be... Oh, they're level 10. We could probably take them, but whatever. We don't need to go down there.
the game looks so strange now to me.
Right?
Like it looks the same, right? So, and I know that way back when the graphics were actually poorer. Like we now have higher poly count models and stuff like that, but it basically feels the same to me as what it was, whatever, 15 years ago or whatever.
I would agree with that, actually. So just in case anyone missed it, this was mentioned earlier when the lecture was first starting, but this is WoW Classic. For those of you who downloaded the demo, which I'm only saying because I know some of you already had WoW accounts, and so then you can play wherever you wanted. But for those of you who actually played the demo version, this was not it. This is how WoW looked 15 years ago, and the world has changed since then and been modified and patched since then, and that's what you saw in the demo version that you played for class this week.
Yeah, but you can tell like it's old. I mean, you're playing The Witcher right now, I know also, like Witcher 3, like the graphics are just so much more high fidelity, I guess, than like this. So like in this game, you know, there's like little pieces of grass here, I guess. But in The Witcher 3, there's like grass everywhere, right?
Right, and these look very like, these are static.
Right.
Witcher, this is actually interesting because I am playing retail WoW right now also. And going back and forth between Witcher and WoW retail, and now this is... Oh, the guy's right here.
Oh yeah, he is.
Sweet.
Blood and thunder. Mukra.
The first time I played this game, I read all the quest text very carefully, and sometimes aloud, because I leveled with a couple of friends of mine, and we had a history of playing role-playing games together, and so this one friend of mine in particular would spend the time to like read aloud the text in a flourishing way, I guess.
Nice. I like that.
Now I just click through.
Yeah, I do or don't depending on what I'm doing. So I'm more likely to do that when I'm streaming or teaching a class. Let me check. I'm being told I can juice up the settings. Yeah, I know.
How do you manage to pay attention to chat while playing at the same time?
There's a couple things. First of all, and all of my students know this and they are very patient, I will not see all of the comments. I don't try to read every single one because it would be impossible. I also have 5 TAs, and so they will occasionally help with fielding questions. So the class is 200 people, so I wouldn't do it without TAs. All right. I am going to figure out where we need to go for this quest here, and then as soon as I'm done doing that, I am going to cut off the expertise question. You have been warned. Grab a flawed power stone and bring it to the altar. I've prepared power stones. Someone place them, so take a stone from the table. Alright, there's a table here? Oh, I walked right away from that table and didn't take a stone. Did you get one?
Nope.
Okay, that's back here.
This is why you have to read things.
This is why you have to read things. Alright. Now we take it to the altar of fire on top of Dreadmist Peak. Travel west and then north when the road forks. The peak will be to your left. Alright, cool. So we need to go to the west. Just that way. One thing I gotta say that I still really love about the minimap right now is the minimap itself stays stable. So if I start going west, the map doesn't reorient, and in Witcher it reorients, and then I get lost. Okay, on that happy note, it is timestamp 2:45. No more answers about expertise. So Mark, uh, so you talk about everyday expertise, and you emphasize that you're not talking about. Oh my God, I forgot the word you use now.
I can't help you.
Dang. So it's like you juxtapose it and like you made it clear that you were not talking about like official authority expertise or whatever. You were talking about everyday expertise. Um, and what I want to ask is why did you think it was important to take that that lens while talking about expertise in relation to your WoW work?
Um, the game is really, really, really loud. So like, give me a second while I try to deal with this dinosaur. Because I can't really hear myself think right now. Whew, okay. Hold on, let me change my audio settings. Okay, so expertise. There's so much, I guess, subtext that's going on in particular academic disciplines. So I got a education in education. My degree is in education, so I was in an education department and everything. And one of the things that discipline, talks about a lot is expertise, and there's certain ways that different scholars signify, I guess, their position on certain things as opposed to previous scholars. When you're writing like a book or a paper or whatever and you submit to a journal, you're kind of having a conversation with other people who belong in the same discipline, right? And so by using the phrase everyday expertise, partly the reason why I do that is because I'm trying to signify to all these other people who study expertise in education that I'm more like these people and less like these people. You know what I mean? And so it's a phrase that I sort of borrowed from my PhD advisor, Phil Bell, who studies like basically science expertise in kids, in like middle school and high school kids, or elementary school kids even, and contrasts like what they do in school to what they do out of school. So like at home or, at an after school club or something like that. And there's all this stuff that happens outside of school that isn't like quote unquote official, but it's still a display of like scientific knowledge and knowing how to like study something in sort of a methodical way while you're trying to answer a question. And so they're engaging in science, but it's not like official school science, And so he and a bunch of other scholars, when they talk about that type of display of knowledge and practice, they just threw the label every day in front of it to signify that it's like, we're experts in a whole bunch of different things, not just what counts in school. You know what I mean? So then, if you take that idea and sort of expand it, there's a whole bunch of different disciplines and there's different ways to sort of become experts in these different disciplines and everything. And a lot of them are like, depending on our society or whatever, some of them are thought of to be more like, oh, this is a real serious thing versus this is just like something you do in your leisure time or it doesn't really count, and I think by using the label every day, it means that actually we should be counting these things. It does matter for people because it's like consequential for their lives. It matters for like somebody who's playing like Grand Theft Auto or whatever that or Fortnite. Like Fortnite's a better example. So like it matters for certain people who are playing Fortnite that they are becoming expert in it. Because it's how they socialize and everything. It's how they are being people.
Oh my god.
That's a really long. It's a really long-winded question, but I mean answer. But
That's
that's
all
what.
right. In the meantime, we did get a couple of other good questions that I wanted to talk about, or that I would like to point out to you. And I cannot stop aggroing things. So Mutant Burgers asked if you felt the genre of a cooperative game, although I would add maybe you could say cooperative or not in addition to those, if the type of game matters to the types of skills that you then learn and bring into IRL.
Just before I get to that, one thing that we are way above our level here.
Are we?
Well, I mean, this hyena is 16 and red for me, and I think we're like 10 or something, 11?
Yeah, we are.
Which might be why you're aggroing everything, and I'm aggroing everything, and why you just died.
Yeah, we probably should have taken the road, because then we would have not been around here. So I'm gonna release and meet you back
Okay,
here.
I'll go towards the road.
Yeah, I should be able to rise pretty close to the world. Oh, is the in-game volume too much? Yeah, I can turn that down. Hold on. Where is it? Where is it? Here.
Okay, so the question was, can you just repeat it?
Yeah, hold on. Let me scroll back real quick because I remember the gist of it, but I don't want to mess it up.
Can't talk fighting.
Yeah, so the question was, do you believe that the genre of collaborative game that you play has an effect on the skills that you refine and bring into the real world?
There's some things that I think are universal from one setting to another setting, and I'm not even talking about like games to the real world, but like anything to anything else. There are certain things that are universal: how you socialize, how you just sort of engage with other people, um, how you try to suss out like what counts in that setting, or what's normalized practice, or a lot of times there's this thing called a legitimate peripheral participation, um, where if you're new to a space, a lot of times you just sort of like hang out on the sides for a while until you sort of get it. Like you get it enough that you can then start participating by mimicking others or whatever. Um, and then the more you do that, the more you become familiar with the space and are able to participate more and more. Um, in terms of like learning something from a particular space and then applying that to some other thing, it really depends on what you mean, I guess. So in terms of game genres, like you could, I guess, argue maybe um, you could learn the basics of driving by playing a racing game, right? Or you could learn the rules for soccer by playing FIFA. Um, there's certain things like that is more readily apparent, I think. But I think what actually matters more for games specifically is that games are really good at presenting people with like a system to try to figure out. Like you're trying to figure out how the game works. And that whole process of just like, just trying stuff and seeing what happens, um, can or should be applied to real life, I think. A lot of times in real life, um, you're afraid to make the wrong move or you get penalized more harshly, whereas in a game you're sort of encouraged to just try a bunch of stuff, um, which I think is a problem. But I feel like you should be able to like the best way to learn is to try stuff and then just see what happens, right? Um, and that whole process, that inquiry process, or that using curiosity to drive your actions type of process, I think transfers pretty easily.
Okay, so the other question that I thought was really good that I wanted to point out is, can you both tell us about an example where WoW influenced your expertise in your IRL community? I'll
You
let
want to
you.
go first?
I can if you need a minute to think.
I do have an example.
Go ahead.
Um, so again, this isn't, it's not WoW specific, but like in WoW, I learned a lot about management and teamwork and how to negotiate with other people. So I was the guild master or guild leader or whatever it's called in this game, for like a year or so, and then I transferred it over to a friend of mine. Um, but in that time, well, even after that, I was one of the officers. We only had 5 officers, and there were some days when I would log in, and let's say I spent like 5 hours in the game that day. 3 of those hours was just like talking to people and trying to negotiate or manage conflict between guild members and stuff. And I feel like there's a lot of just like, how do you get good at trying to like diffuse heated arguments. um
Oh God, yeah.
and it doesn't come naturally for a lot of people, and for me a lot of it is just like I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. I don't know what to do or anything like that. But through just experience and like years and years with World of Warcraft now, um I've gotten better and better, I think, at being able to try to just understand where people are coming from, and having them try to understand each other's points of views and stuff, and just that whole like you know argumentation type of discourse is something that this game certainly helped me get better at.
All right, so I think this is Dreadmist's peak because it said it would be to the left.
Okay,
Um,
I know it is one of these things. I don't remember which, but
I'm not
I'll,
entirely sure. I literally was just reading the instructions in the um, uh, quest log. Okay, so my answer to that question would be coming out of WoW, I definitely learned teamwork because I also did research into, I didn't look at expertise. I looked at like hierarchy and community within high-end raiding guilds. Um, but honestly, when I was coming up through school, even if there was group work on occasion, I hated it and I never actually learned how to work well in a group because frankly, it was easier to just do everything myself. Um,
hmm
but when doing the end game of, World of Warcraft or games like this, that's just not an option. You cannot do it by yourself. And that absolutely translated into um, real world capabilities because then I then took that expertise and it made me successful as a game designer. Because it was after I did my master's work in World of Warcraft that I worked as a game designer, which again, it was something I was working on another MMO that is something you cannot do solo. And obviously, I can't know exactly what it would have been like if I hadn't learned those group work lessons beforehand, but I can't imagine that that would have gone over well um, if I had not learned those beforehand. I mean, and that's all aside to the point that had I not had experience playing World of Warcraft, I'm not sure I would have been capable of really doing the design work I did on a different MMO.
yeah. So like, if so what is it about this game, I guess, that um why did we learn teamwork through this game instead of through some other thing? You know what I mean? Like it seems weird that we didn't like learn how to do this well in school, right? So like what about this game sort of made it surface?
I mean, I think that's an excellent question, and I think I my theory on this is that it's a question of motivation and the way games can motivate people that school just can't. So like I mentioned, and I almost hate saying this as a teacher now because I have classes with group work in it, and I really hope this is not happening in my classes, but when I was back in, say, like high school or even like freshman year of college, it was literally easier for me to do group projects solo than to have to rely on other people. Um, and so I would just do this stuff solo because then it got done and then I got an A and that's what I wanted. Um, and I didn't really have the motivation to do it as a group um, because I felt like grades were too important to me. And so I felt like it would be risking too much. Um, but within a game, because it was required, because I couldn't get where I wanted to go um, solo, I didn't have a choice. Like I had to learn it, and I wanted to, because I wanted to do that in-game content. I'm thinking this is the altar, maybe. Let me see. I mean, we're on Dreadmist Peak. Uh,
When I right click on the flawed power stone, nothing seems to happen right here.
hmm. Bring it to the altar of fire. Before the
What?
stone expires, it's not expired yet.
Oh wait, it actually made the mouse. The mouse changes into a selector mouse. The mouse icon, you know?
Oh, yeah. Is this it? Is this thing it, maybe?
The early game is like does very little hand holding compared to the how the game is now.
Right?
I
I'm
sort of love it.
literally just clicking around my screen right now. I'm like, is this it?
Yeah,
Is
and
this
who
it?
the hell is this guy? Like, why is he just standing around?
Don't know. This looks
Um,
like an altar to me.
I agree. Um,
No.
for me, I mean, I understand totally where you're coming from. I think the game like somehow provides a reason for why you would want to cooperate. Like other than just like, doing the work and learning and like getting a good grade and stuff like that. But like there's like the reason why you would want to do it um in the game at least is like you're interested in seeing content that you can't normally see by yourself or um you want to get a particular item or some sort of achievement or something like that that you can't get on your own. Like I wonder if school is so different. Like as a faculty member now, if I design a course and I make it so that um, there's a group project or whatever, if I make it so that it's impossible to complete individually, then like I always feel bad about that because then I'm penalizing students who um, are actually really good students, but they just got stuck in a really crappy group.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't get penalized for that. I guess over the years, I've designed group work to be different. A lot of the stuff that I have groups do now is like the actual output doesn't matter. Like what more matters more is how they write about it and how they reflect on what they try to do and if they think they did well and stuff like that. And a lot of that is individual. You write an individual reflection on what your group did. Um, and that's how I sort of try to get around that issue. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, trying to make a course so that. Ooh, hey, we got repops. Um,
Oh my God.
that just sort of like encourages, I guess, participation. I mean, I did wrote about this in the book a little bit. Is that you have these different character classes, and each class does something different. And oh, well, like maybe down there, look at there's like a whole
You think so?
settlement down there. I don't know.
So, okay, hold on, let me check this code. So it says, take the stone from the table and bring it to the altar of fire atop Dreadmist Peak.
Or maybe there's a different peak.
Yeah, that could be. I mean, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but anyways, World of Warcraft does a good job of sort of dividing players by class already, and so like if you kind of do that in a design project, right? I don't know if you do this, but I have students have to choose whether they're going to be like the project manager or the artist or the coder or whatever for a game design project.
Yeah, so I do now. In my first year teaching game design, I experimented with different ways of putting the groups together, but I do it the way you just described now because it has definitely worked out the best. The point you make about classes is really good too. So I have tried to map that idea onto classes, in part by trying to get another teacher of another class to work with me so that we have like to team up with like an art class or a comp sci class in order to have different skills coming in. But that's the bureaucracy is just impossible to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
So you're thinking it's by the bonfire?
I don't know.
Here?
No, I don't think so anymore. Because I just sort of moved my mouse around a whole bunch of stuff and nothing highlighted.
It just seems so obvious that it should be on top there, and it's
Well, what doesn't help is our visual range is so low right now that we can't really tell, like, if there's like some other place that it could be nearby. See, there's a bonfire down there to the north, and then there's a bonfire over there to the south west. So because there's two bonfires, I'm like, okay, it's probably not one of the bonfires, you know. An altar to me is like a stone pedestal type of thing, and what we were looking at is like a diagram written on the ground.
yeah, but it also had candles and stuff, so that's why I was thinking that like maybe
Yeah.
whatever. I'm gonna just Google it.
Okay.
So
You're
someone just
you're
said that
not
there's a
getting the
cave
whole
in the mountain with the altar.
a cave in the mountain.
Yeah, what is going on? Hold on.
Well, there's a sort of outcropping here. There's a cave here. Oh, and there's a glowing red crystal thing here. That, yes, the altar of fire.
Okay, you found it. Where are you? You're like,
Well, I stealthed down here. I'll come back to you. Do you see me here?
yes, now I see you. I will.
We have to clear out some of these people here.
Yeah, I'm not a stealthy stealth like you. So I want to point out because I see a lot of chatter about the cooperation aspect, and that's great. But I also feel like I get so I'm gonna say because I'm not basing it on this class. I want you guys to know that. But I get so many papers over the years, and this focus on learning cooperation in games. And yes, you can learn cooperation in games, and that's wonderful. But that's not it. I don't think that's the only thing you can get from a game, right? So maybe that was a bad thing for me to use as an example. But then also, in playing with the high-end raiders, I learned a lot about efficiency and time management. Which also greatly helped me to handle a full-time job without breaking down.
Yeah. So, later in the book, basically around chapter 2 and 3 or so, I start making the argument that expertise actually is not really about what you know, and also not actually even about what you do, which is what a lot of social cultural like theorists would argue. I
Mhm.
guess my argument was that it's actually more about how you arrange your space, like how you manage and gather resources, and those resources might be other people, but it might be like websites that you use or whatever. How you sort of collect, like filter through what you need, determine what you need, and then make sure it's all assembled together in order to be able to do what you're doing. So like chapter 3 is about an add-on, a threat meter add-on, and like how that helped the group that I was with, in their fights and everything, and become more efficient and all that stuff. A lot of it is just like, that being an expert isn't like you inherently yourself have the capability of doing all this stuff, but it's like you and all the stuff you've recruited um, are the expert.
I mean, I would greatly agree with you, but I'm also biased, right? So I lived and worked for a long time in Asia, and there is a cultural difference here in that it's a very, very American and Western thing to have this idea of the solo expert. Not that they don't have an
Mm,
idea of expertise, right? But there's a lot more focus on the group. And so, even when I was working in the company, we didn't have, like, there was nobody with the title lead designer. That was not a thing you did. We had a design team, and everyone on that team was equal and worked together toward this common goal, and we succeeded or failed together, right? And so you don't have something like Sid Meier's Civilization, right? Because you don't pull out that one person. And Sid Meier, I have never met him, so I have no idea, but I'm sure he's a perfectly wonderful person, but we all know he didn't make that by himself,
hmm
right? Like that was a team project. Oh, he just popped on top of me.
huh.
Uh,
So we finished this quest. We need to figure out where to
where to go
turn it
next?
in. Yeah.
Probably back to the dude, right?
Travel west and north. I guess so. And hurry, the sun's power will consume itself in time. And we're gonna get Banshee armor, which is cloth armor, so I don't care.
So we need to go to the east and south. We need to go back to the road, which is just to the east of us.
Okay.
Um, okay. Carbon is asking, people give punishments in real life because negative reinforcement is helpful for teaching, just like positive reinforcement. Games give punishments for that reason, not to be like life, but because they have the same goal. Um, okay, so I have thoughts on this, but these guys get to hear me every single week, so I don't know if you have thoughts on this.
I guess it depends what you mean by like negative and positive reinforcement. So like let's take a game like Among Us, where like if you're one of the people who aren't the traitor and you don't figure out who the traitor is, and that person's able to kill enough people or whatever in your ship, um was all that negative reinforcement? Um or was that positive reinforcement? Like I'm not even sure that's even the right terms to use. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're having fun all the whole time, and you might be wrong in terms of who you guessed. Um, like maybe you all got together and voted somebody to die to get spaced, and you chose the wrong person. Um, but even though you got it wrong, and you got feedback that it was wrong, and somebody died because of it, I'm not sure if that's actually like negative reinforcement. It's like just part of the learning process where you're trying to figure something out, and then you see if it works or not. um
Okay, so
in real life you have like, so school is specific, like you have like positive reinforcement in terms of like stars and points and grades and stuff like
Right,
that.
I'm taking the road, my man, because it was all risky over there.
Okay, hold on. I'll get to the road. Um,
Also, apparently I'm dead to all my students that play Alliance. It's cool.
oh man, the Horde is where it's at. Like, if you want to ally yourself with the underdog, at least on the servers that we were on,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
you care about marginalized populations, the Horde is where it's at. Okay, so in real life, well, let's just face it. Like, I don't know if I can swear, but grades are bullshit. Um,
Oh, yeah, I
and
mark the channel M for mature even while I'm teaching, just in case.
you
This is
know,
why I teach
you get
college.
you get points and stuff like that for doing the right thing or whatever. Or, but in this case, right basically means like getting the right answer, like in a math test or whatever, right? And then you get negative. I guess you just get a low score if you do poorly in the math test. But then like if if we're talking about like behaviorism, like let's say you go the wrong way in some, I don't know, some test or something, and you get some sort of negative reinforcement there, like electric shock or whatever. I don't know. Like, yeah, you can learn that way, and some things are set up for those types of like immediate feedback type of things. But I think what matters more, and this is true for games and real life, is that you need that sort of freedom to just sort of like have an idea of what you should be doing and then try it and see if that's the right thing. Um, and not like get punished for it, but more like just get adequate feedback that it worked or not. You know what I mean? Um, and so in Among Us example, it's not like you're getting punished. I mean, you sort of are because you're starting to lose the game if you just space too many people. But lose is the wrong word, right? Because you still had a ton of fun playing the game, and so it's more like you're just given the right amount of feedback to let you know if you did the right thing or not. Um, you know what I mean? And then like your whole enjoyment of Among Us and the reason why you want to keep playing is because you're continuously surprised about like what people do or how they're able to sort of fool each other and all that stuff is just really fun to just try to like make your best guess with little information. Um, you know,
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm just sort of
so
rambling now, but yeah.
so what I was gonna say with that is for me, I think that one, i- thinking about it in terms of negative reinforcement is one way to look at it, but another way to look at it is in terms of risk. And the thing for me is that I view those differently, very differently, if we're talking about a game versus if we're talking about school, for example, right? So I had mentioned that grades were very important to me when I was a lot younger. And so there was a lot of stress associated with the fact that with this idea of I needed to get an A and I needed to do well, right? And it was very stressful. But in a game, if you have like this negative reinforcement of like you could die or you could um, lose your loot or whatever, even though you can look at it as a negative consequence or something, to me it feels like a risk and it lends excitement. But it also lends excitement because it's a game, right? And so even though there are things to lose and there are consequences, especially when you're at like the high end rating, um, it's a risk that was enough to give excitement, but not so much that I couldn't take it, right? Like if I had failed a
Right.
class in high school, I might have not gotten into the college I wanted. Whereas if I lose a bunch of loot in World of Warcraft or if I die or something, like I can make that up. It is a risk. It is a consequence that I can overcome or I can see myself being able to overcome. Whereas in so keep going back to high school because that's when I was most stressed about grades. Um, but to me, it felt like, whether this was true or not, and in retrospect at my age, I now think this is not true, but I felt like if I failed at something, if I got, a bad grade in a class, I felt like that was something that I could not overcome, which makes a big difference. Um, okay, so We have another question in chat. I was really hoping that would lead us to the next quest, and I got nothing.
Yeah, you're right. I got nothing as well. But I did level up.
I did too. I mean, I guess that's good.
We could run to
Crossroads?
yes,
Okay,
Crossroads.
let's do that.
Okay.
So I'm gonna get on the road and then go into auto run for a minute because I've got another question to.
Just follow me.
Oh, yeah, sure. Uh, da, da, da. Whoops. Why did that not work? It's
I
just
don't know.
slash follow, right?
Yeah, I thought so. You have to have
There
be
we go.
targeted.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, so the question was, in today's social situation, do you think we should pay more attention to individual expertise or group expertise? We are very clear that lots of the design team, game development team, or executive department in the industry are very strong and their teams have very high capabilities. Maybe experts in the form of division of labor is more suitable for people today.
Yeah. So my feeling is that you need certain like the whole team needs a certain level of expertise in certain things. Like the whole team needs to be good at communication, right? The whole team needs to be good at um, emotional regulation. A lot of these sort of, I guess, soft skills. Um, and then certain people need to be really good at certain, um, I guess, skills that are required in order to get whatever it is that you're trying to do done. So in a game design team, for example, um, you don't need everyone to be an excellent artist. You don't need everyone to be a coder. But you need enough people to be artists and enough people to be coders so that the whole project can get finished. But everyone, all the coders and artists and everyone else, the audio engineers or whatever, they all have to be good at talking to each other, for the team to sort of be effective and everything. And so I think a lot of it is dependent, like it's dependent on, team size. Let's say you're only working with one other person, then a lot of times you find that you have to be really good at a lot of different things in a really small team, because often you have to just sort of be agile enough to be able to cover all the different bases and everything. Whereas if you're on a really huge team, like you're working for Ubisoft or something like that, maybe you're just in charge of like you know what trees look like, right?
Right.
So like a lot of it is like task size and team size, I think. Um, if you look like at an ER room, all the people in an emergency room have a basic, foundational level of knowledge about how humans work, and medicine and stuff like that. But only, maybe only one or two of them are like really experts at being surgeons, and one or two are really experts at um, judging how much anesthetic you should be administering to somebody and stuff like that, right? So you have certain things that everyone has to be good at, and then certain things I think you can specialize at.
Yeah, so I want to make sure I get back to this other question about education that Carbon asked me in response to my comments about how stressed I was in high school. Do I think schools should be better at informing students and how they come back from failure? Absolutely. So I don't know. I mean, it's been a while since I've been in high school. So I don't know if how life is portrayed to y'all now is any different. Um, but this but I was basically lied to. I was told that you know I was told that this would go on my permanent record that would follow me for the rest of my life, and that's bullshit. Um, like I straight up got there was a few times I got like detention in high school, and I'm pretty sure that the record of that doesn't even exist. Like nobody cares. Like when I interviewed for my job here, at no point did somebody say, "Well, I see that you were sent to detention by your French teacher in freshman year of high school. It was always the French teacher. I had a thing with her. Um, right? Like that didn't happen. It wasn't my permanent record. It didn't matter. It literally didn't matter that I didn't like my French teacher and she gave me detention. Um, but it caused an inordinate amount of stress, right? And the same thing with the grades. Now, grades were not unimportant. My grades did allow me to get into the school of my choice, which happened to be UW, where I'm working right now. um, but they weren't everything, and I could have gotten over. Um, I didn't need perfection. I was led to believe that I had to be perfect in order to get into a tier 1 school. And that was simply not the case, right? Because had I at any point failed a test, there's another test, there's other assignments, there's other, uh, you know, things
Yeah.
that make the difference, right? But I was led to believe that if at any point I failed any one thing in any class, that was it. That I was going to fail the class and my life would be over. And that level of stress was detrimental to me because then there was a lot of skills that I should have been learning that I didn't at that time, like group work, like how to effectively communicate with people because I wasn't communicating with people because I was always in the library or reading a book or whatever. Um, like the soft skills that
So
you.
that explains a lot.
Oh, thanks a
No, just
lot.
kidding.
um, Well, no, but what it did then is it made the my early adult years, so like 18, 19, 20, 21, like my college years, extremely difficult because those soft skills are actually necessary for success in life. Um,
Hmm.
do I think fear of protection in school stunts students' learning and that the freedom of video games allows for better learning? I would say absolutely yes. Um, I actually think I would have learned more had I been less stressed because I would have been able to give that mental space to learning as opposed to giving it to trying not to freak out. Um, wow, you guys are coming up with some good questions today. Let me find out where we are and then I'll read out another one for Dr. Chen because, like I said, you guys get to see me all the time. Let's see. We can take a Wind Rider to Orgrimmar, but let's not. That seems boring. Bring this cure crate to... I don't know if we want to go to Ratchet. Ooh, how about we kill Razormanes?
Sure.
Okay.
I feel like school is such bullshit. I mean, like the real benefit of going to college, and this year brings all that into question, is like socializing and like figuring out how to be an adult, you know, and like having to deal with a budget for the first time, having to live in an apartment for the first time, and cook for yourself for the first time, and then just hanging out with people, um, and just like figuring out who you are through this sort of social context. I feel like that's like why college, why so many people have this romantic vision in their head about college life, and I don't mean like going out and partying and all that stuff, but I just mean like how to be decent, to people, and all that stuff you have to learn by, you know interaction with other people and all that. The whole school thing, there's grades, there's progression. You have to take certain classes before you can take other classes. You have to, be able to pass ninth grade before you get into 10th grade and all this stuff. And you have to like, get an A in your AP classes or whatever so that you can apply to the right college and all that stuff. I mean, it's all this rigmarole that like I'm not sure it's actually a good indicator of success in life. Um, and it opens up certain things for sure. Like you can apply to Stanford or whatever, right? If you have a 4.0 or whatever. But going to Stanford does not mean you are less capable of a person than if you go to like community college. Like, I think a lot of it depends on the person. A lot of it depends on this sort of self drive and just sort of like constant, I guess, desire to improve yourself.
Okay, you
And it
follow
is
me now.
okay. And you know, something about like um I tell my students is that you've got a long time to go, right? So like if you fail one class right now while you're like a sophomore in college, um when you're 50, that little blip is not going to matter at all. And maybe that thing is what sort of prompted you to realize that like what you actually care about is learning. Like you care about improving yourself and learning and constantly trying to understand each other and be good to each other and stuff. And um, the grade that you got in this one class while you were a sophomore is irrelevant for this longer road that you're on in becoming human, and um, and I am really sorry that our K-12 and higher ed system is set up to sort of like emphasize the grades so much, but it really is bullshit. It's all bullshit. And I'm talking about this coming as somebody with an education degree,
Talking to a
Um,
class that's in the education school of ed here at UW. All right,
I
these are
mean,
the two
grades
things.
now. I mean, you're all in the school of ed, so like you understand, like all our whole K-12 and higher ed system is set up to be about assessment, and we're assessing the wrong things, and we're only doing it because it's easy. It's easy to quantify. Um, it's way less easy to judge character, and those are the things that we should be caring about.
I have a question. I remember always being able to track quests on the right side of my screen. Was that a mod?
It was added later,
Oh,
officially.
God.
Um, and it was a mod. We can track if you open a quest log. You can track certain things. I think. Um, but yeah, I have a question too because only one thing's showing up and it's the wrong thing.
Really? What's showing up?
For me, I have the Shattered Hand showing up, which is a rogue specific quest.
So I can't track anything at all.
Oh, try shift clicking on the quest name.
Shift click. Oh, there it is. Yes, thank you. Everything works differently here than retail. Uh,
Like, how are you supposed to know this?
I don't know. So here's the thing. At one time, we did know this. At
I
one
know,
time,
but
you and
like,
I were both experts in this game.
it's so hard to penetrate now. This game, like, if you if you are new to the game, how the hell are you supposed to know that you shift click on the quest name?
I don't know.
Um,
Bad tutorial design?
I guess so. How long is this class?
It ends at 3:45. Do you need to go?
No, I mean I postponed my next thing until later.
Okay. Uh,
I'm playing Gloomhaven. If you know what that is,
I do.
yeah,
That
for
is
my
a
next thing.
phenomenal game. Um,
If any of you are studying to be like K-12 educators, then like first off, kudos to you. We need really good educators in this country. But secondly, I hope you try to emphasize learning for your kids and not grades.
so since we are almost running out of time, I want to say to my students, thank you for all the wonderful questions. I have actually been paying attention to to chat, and so I have seen some of your very excellent questions. It is physically impossible to verbally answer them all, so you know how it is. But there was one that passed that scrolled by a little while ago. I do want to bring it up because one, it connects with last week Two, I think Dr. Chen will have thoughts on this. And three, I also noticed y'all discussing this idea of toxicity and learning. So kudos and thank you. The question was, um, do you think and how do you think toxicity in certain games or certain communities affects learning and expertise?
Okay, so the general premise of social cultural learning, is just this idea that learning takes place in some sort of social cultural context, right? And you have to participate in that context in order to become good at it. It isn't just like you read a book and you're suddenly good at something. You actually have to participate in a community, right? So when you have certain types of communities that are being exclusive or exclusionary or marginalizing certain types of people, then that's a huge problem if you acknowledge that learning is social. So like one of the things that matters, one of the basic, just like fundamental things that is required then is access. Everyone needs sort of a equal access to be able to participate. Yeah, so like toxicity is a huge issue. With it's interesting because I usually don't answer this question in terms of learning. I usually answer this type of question in terms of like just general gaming culture, why toxicity is such a terrible thing. Um, but it has repercussions on learning for sure. Like a lot of times, learning. So after I graduated, I started working for this a research group that was focusing on math games, and um, one of the things I kept trying to bring up. It's hard to do if your group is your group's mission is to make math games. But one of the things I kept bringing up is that it doesn't matter how good our game is. If this kid is not eating lunch, that's going to have more of an effect on their learning than if our game is any good. And same thing with like if it's a toxic environment for anyone, that's going to matter way more like than your curriculum, or the design of the class that you made or whatever, right? I don't have a good answer for how to address that really, but for me, like in my own classes that I teach, I try to just get to know my students really, really well and make sure that they all feel like they have a voice. And that I think matters more for me. Like I usually um, the classes that I run tend to be resource heavy. Like here's a whole crap ton of ways you can learn these things. Like I'm gonna give you like some lectures and like some basic info about certain things about like game design or whatever it is that you should know. But then here's just like a whole series of YouTube videos that you can go and learn all this stuff. And then focus on just making sure they all feel like um, that they feel like they can continue that learning journey outside of class or beyond class, whatever, and like make sure that they all feel like they're part of it. We're all part of the same team. Um, and I don't know. I don't know if that's a good answer, but that's my answer.
I think it's a good answer. And actually, so this is something that I don't know that I've shared with this class before or not. But the reason this class is offered on Twitch um, is not because of COVID. So I started teaching this class in this format before COVID started. And the reason why is because when I first experimented with it, that first cohort of students said that this format allowed for more engagement. They felt like they had a stake in what was happening. They felt like their voice could get heard, which even that was interesting to me since I can't actually address everything that comes up in chat. Um, But even so, that's what that first cohort told me. And so that's why I've continued to teach this class over Twitch, um, which also makes kind of sense because when I was teaching this in person, um, I'm sure everyone in this room at some point has or is or will take a class like this, but it's 200 students in a large lecture hall. Um, so the fact of the matter is that less of you would have a chance to actually talk to me if we were in person than uh, than you do now being on Twitch. Which is also my way of just saying, I agree with you, Dr. Jen.
Yeah, I have not ever taught a class as big as your class, um, but yeah, this online instruction thing for me is really interesting. Like I'm basically online all the time, anyways, and so it was pretty easy for me to make the transition. Um, like I'm on Discord all the time, anyways. Um,
Yeah,
but
I also had a fairly easy time um, with
it's totally not
that.
true of some of our colleagues, right? Like,
Oh, yeah, some people struggled so hard with it. Honestly, the only thing that I struggled with was just logistics of the fact that, so I have a roommate. She is also a teacher, and we had, before COVID, arranged the office space, internet use, teaching, and everything so that we wouldn't be conflicting with each other. And that was impossible to do with COVID. So I think I actually made reference earlier in this stream that I was concerned about the connection because my roommate is also streaming right now.
yeah,
Um, but that was also because we arranged our class times and everything before COVID hit. But that was it. That was my biggest problem, which, yes, compared to some other people, my problems were minor.
hmm
So let's see. We have like 3 minutes. Do you have any final thoughts you want to share, or should I squeeze in one last question? You're our guest. I'll let you pick.
I mean, a question's fine. Anyone
Okay.
should feel free to like email me if you want, or find me on LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever. It's just Mark Danger Chen on basically everything, or McDanger on Twitter.
Let's see. I'm gonna try to find a question that I think we can actually answer in 3 minutes. Um,
I started giving people copies of the whole book, PDF of the whole book, if they ask. So if any of your students need that, then they just need to ask.
Okay, here's a good one because it's about capital and you actually wrote about this and they read about it. So then to bridge talking about getting good grades and having fun with friends within school and the book, would good grades be the cultural capital and having fun with friends be social capital? Then my main question would be, are social and cultural capital two things that should be balanced fairly equally, or does it depend on what the situation is?
um, I think it might depend on the context. Um, for me, social capital is much more about friendships and interpersonal relationships. And then cultural is more about disciplinary displays of like you belong to this community type of thing, you know? Um,
There's a chest over here.
and like you could uh you could have the same friends in different communities. Like, if you and your friends decide to start playing soccer together, and then later on you decide to start, like go bowling together or whatever, um, your one community that you're hanging out in, or one culture that you're hanging out in, is like, like the bowling league, and like what's common practice in terms of like, what what's normalized, I guess, like in a bowling hall or whatever they're called. um but that's separate then. Like you have these friendships that had existed already, and like they get strengthened by these activities that you can do together and everything, and that can transfer from setting to setting or subculture to subculture, I guess. Um, I don't know. I feel like you actually should be answering this and not me because it's like your advisor who I drew all this stuff from. Um, but
Well, I wanted to hear your opinion on it, especially with this idea of balancing it or not. I mean, my answer would be that these should be balanced, and I could actually give a real quick and potentially funny example of that, and that is that social and cultural capital are both equally important and can help you in different ways, right? So I have a lot of cultural capital within World of Warcraft that allowed me to be able to do this lesson today and to put together this lecture. But I also have a lot of social capital in that Mark and I have been friends for many years. So this was 100% social capital that I got on Facebook Messenger today, and I was like, "Hey, Mark, I meant to ask you 2 months ago if you had guest lecture in my class." Which is true. I actually meant to ask you 2 months ago,
mhm.
and then I forgot. Right, but that's social capital because if you didn't know me, like if we were not friends and some random person on Facebook was just like, hey,
Yeah, but then if I looked you up and I realized that you were like this gaming scholar, and you're asking me because I'm a gaming scholar, then that cultural capital of yours that you have accrued might have been enough for me to agree.
okay, but so I would have needed one or the other, right? I would have had to either have the cultural
Yeah.
capital or the
No,
social
I'm
capital.
reinforcing what you're saying.
Um,
I'm trying to agree with you here. Yeah.
So
Um,
yeah, but it is actually 3:47. So class is over, and Dr. Shen has other places to be. He's got to play Gloomhaven, which is an excellent game and very important. So thank you everyone for the wonderful questions. Thank you, Mark, for coming. I really appreciate you doing this for me at the last minute, and I owe you one. So let me
absolutely, no problem.
know if you ever need me to drop in on one of your classes or anything.
Okay,
All right.
that'd be good.
Bye,
I'm running to Crossroads. Bye.
Hi, everybody.